Akkad is from the city Agade, and Agade is a city located in the Babylonian Empire, specifically in North Babylon. Babylon is located in Namibia and sits on both sides of the Euphrates River in a north-south position, where the northern part of Babylon is directly over the southern part of Babylon. Agade was the capital of the Akkadian Empire, and Agade was founded by Sargon the Great. Agade is called Akkad and Akkadian, and it never existed as an empire separate from Babylon. Sumer and Chaldea were cities in southern Babylon, and they rose to power at separate time periods and ruled Babylon from within, not as separate kingdoms outside of Babylon. Pay close attention as we will take a brief look at these cities that rose to power in the Babylonian kingdom.
This is it. This is Babylon. Babylon of history. Babylon of the scriptures. Babylon of the Old Testament as well as the New Testament. This is how it looked. This is its shape, and this is its topology. This is Babylon, the one of history. And this is its location. Babylon is located in Namibia, Southwest Africa. This is it here. Now Babylon is concealed, hidden, and covered up with the place name Whitflay. Whitflay is Whitflay is Afrikaans. This is an Afrikaans word. Afrikaans is Dutch, and Whitflay, the wit means white, and flay spelled V-L-E-I. Flay in Afrikaans, that means marshes. So Whitflay means white marshes, and that's significant because one of the characteristics of Babylon, which is not really known, is that Babylon was full of marshes. And we learn from Herodotus that in order to enter Babylon, you must go through and use a boat. And that Babylon was cut up into many channels. So that's the testimony from Herodotus, and that is what is alluded to in the place name, Whitflay. Babylon is full of marshes, and marshes are what we call today, we call it swamps. So Babylon was basically a swamp land, full of marshes, full of channels of water. And also Babylon, it is divided into two parts. It is the only kingdom that sits on both sides of the Euphrates River. Babylon has a northern part and a southern part. Now the northern part, this is what is called Akkad, and we get the adjective Akkadian. Akkad refers to the northern part of Babylon. The southern part of Babylon, this is where we get the terms Chaldea or Chaldean, and also Sumer or Sumerian. Now the word Sumer, that means black head, and from this we know that the Babylonians, they were black people. They were not white, they were black people. Now the scholars, the so-called academia, they have taken these three terms, Akkad, Sumer, Chaldea, they have taken those three terms, and out of thin air, they have constructed and made three kingdoms that were living, thriving, in existence, separate from Babylon. But such was not the case. Akkad became a kingdom, a ruling power of Babylon within Babylon. It was never separate from Babylon. It never existed outside of Babylon as a separate ruling power. And Akkad is a name in reference to Agade, spelled Agade, Agade. And Agade was found by so-called Sargon the Great. So Akkad is just a name for Agade. But that city, it rose to power and eventually ruled Babylon. And that's where we get the adjective, the Akkadian Empire. That is in reference to a city in Babylon that eventually ruled Babylon. And that's the northern part of Babylon. Now the same thing happened in the southern part of Babylon. Well, Sumer and Chaldea. Both of these are cities in the southern part of Babylon. And both rose to power at different time periods and eventually ruled Babylon. And so you have the Sumerian kingdom and the Chaldean kingdom. But scholars, along with the help of the Vatican, the backing of the Vatican, they have made Sumer and Chaldea, they made those two nations out of thin air to be kingdoms that existed separately from Babylon, which is not the case. Sumer and Chaldea are two cities in Babylon that over a course of time they rose to power and eventually ruled within Babylon. But this is our Babylon. Divided. Babylon is small and it sits on both sides of the Euphrates River. It is the only kingdom that does that. Sits on both sides of the Euphrates River, and it sits in a north-south position, where the northern part sits above, immediately above the southern part, as you see here. And this is the Euphrates River. This is the northern part of Babylon and the southern part here. Now that's a characteristic of Babylon here. Now let's bring this back up. And there. The Babylon here is the biblical, the scriptural, the historical rather, and scriptural Babylon. The authentic one, the real one. This is how I look here. This is just a quick, concise view of Babylon. And this is an important city. Now, according to scripture in the Old Testament, Babylon is supposed to be desolate and uninhabited. And this is the Babylon that you see here that's desolate and uninhabited. The Babylon, the so-called Babylon, the fraudulent Babylon in the Middle East, that one is alive and thriving with a population of people which is contrary to scripture. And that's one of the ways that we know that the one in the Middle East, that is the fraudulent one. That one is Hadrian's. And so, but this one here, this is history. The houses that you see in here, these are mainly ghost towns. These houses are used to conceal, hide, and cover up the many ancient artifacts that are left in Babylon. Babylon is mainly a ghost town with far less than 50% of the population, where that within the population, more than 80% are Caucasian. But this is it here. This is how it look. This is Babylon. This is its topology. This is its location. on both sides of the Euphrates River is Babylon.